it's easy to lose that. It's easy to lose motivation and intention. And that's why a lot of people will say, if you don't love it, it's hard to invest your entire life doing that thing. And the same goes with, some of these performance types of things that we do just for our digital audiences, our digital selves. If it's not true to who we are, then it's easy to drop all of that or become disenfranchised with it. And kind of the opposite is implode because of it. And so we're seeing also this huge influx of disappointment and anxiety, and more than ever.
All right, welcome back to Hawaii Real, everybody. I'm your host, Ioke Ehu. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe to this channel on YouTube. And if you're one of our awesome listeners on iHeartRadio, Amazon Podcasts, Google Podcasts, where else are we? Pandora now, all those podcast platforms. Hey, do us a favor. Can you leave us a review or a star rating and tell us what we're doing good, what we're doing bad, or how we can improve this episode? And it's just going to help so many more people. The whole reason we're doing Hawaii Real is to try to make things real for other people and really, really try to help, and in ways that we don't even know just yet what we're doing. And we want to send a shout out to Hawaiian Springs Water, our beverage host for this episode. Nice 7.7 alkali water. It's good stuff. And this episode is brought to you by the Native Hawaiian Chamber of Commerce. The Native Hawaiian Chamber of Commerce's mission is to malama Native Hawaiians in business and commerce through leadership, relationships, and connections to economic resources and opportunities. The Chamber's programs and events are designed to facilitate connections and promote business growth, professional and economic development, and sustainability. The Chamber's membership is open to individuals, nonprofit organizations, and businesses of all sizes. To learn more about the Chamber and how you can join, visit the website www.nativehawaiianchamberofcommerce.org. All right, today I have with me a very special guest, a former podcaster. You were doing a podcast, but now he's not so much. I'm like, why? Why did you stop? But anyways, I have on BeRad Watanabe from BeRad Studios, owner over there.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming on there.
Of
Brad.
course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Almost last minute. And I'm so thankful for you to be able to, cut time out of your schedule and come out all the way out here. You're talking about, saying goodnight to your child and your wife and everything like that. Thank you so much for, again, coming out here.
Of course. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Excited to just have this conversation and see how we can help.
See where it goes.
Yeah.
So BeRad Studios is a videography studio, production studio.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys pretty much do the gambit of what anybody that needs photography or videography, cinematography needs here in Hawaii.
Pretty much. BeRad Studio, we like to say we do branded story content for companies. Whether you're a nonprofit, whether you're a small business or a big corporation, most of the stuff we do has to do very specifically with storytelling and how to help a brand bring out the essence, the core of their business through some kind of meaningful story, specifically with video. We do some photography. We don't really sell photography in the way that a traditional photographer might, but we do offer it for some of our loyal clients. But yeah, video, that's what we do.
And you've been doing that for how long? Or how long have you been doing video as a professional, and how long has BeRad Studios been around?
Technically, legally, I guess, BeRad Studio has been a company for 11 years. But I started a few years before that. I graduated college in 2001. So technically I've been doing video for close to 20 years now.
Nice. So what year you graduated from high school?
97.
97?
Mililani High School.
Mililani?
Yeah.
97. Jason Sobonego?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's my buddy, man.
No
we
way.
were friends. Yeah, we grew up together.
Wow.
Wow, see, small world, small island.
It's a tiny, tiny place.
Yeah, I could name off a bunch of other guys, but but I know Jason's not going to be watching this because he doesn't watch YouTube. He might listen to this.
I haven't heard that name since we graduated, so it's a nice.
We might have
refreshing.
come across each other back in high school.
That's very possible.
Yeah, I went to Kamehameha, grad 96. That's how I know Kanoho.
Okay.
But yeah, I hung out with Jason and a bunch of other guys in Mililani because that's where I lived.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah, my parents are still in Mililani. My brother still lives there, so we're around all the time.
Cool. No parties that we can discuss? No.
No parties.
We're here for videography and talking about like adult stuff.
Yes. Bring along the adulting.
Yes, but it's funny. Like here in Hawaii, you can make those kinds of connections, just kind of out of the blue. It's like, hey, you do know these people. You do know this person that in other places in the mainland, so to speak, like that typically doesn't happen.
Yeah. I mean, I spent a good 10 years in LA. That's where I went to school, and that's where I started video out. And man, there's so many people in LA who are more travelers. I mean, they come there for school, they might stay there for work, eventually they go back to where they came from, but there's not as many people who grew up in LA, live there all their life, and end up retiring there. It's kind of it's a passer-by city, a lot of transient people. So home is something that, man, I really treasured that while I was there, and always longed for it. So it's good to be back.
So you wanted to come back and create a business here in Hawaii? Is that what it is?
Nope.
What was your main goal when you were going through, or when you were living in LA, honing your skills?
Well, I went to school because I wanted to work for Pixar.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Toy Story was my dream, and I wanted to animate the next Toy Story film. So I studied graphic design. I minored in animation.
Wow.
And that's kind of how I got my start. But in that journey, eventually found a motion graphics industry. They still don't like to call it that, but we did a lot of TV commercials, music videos for some pretty big companies out there. Mm-hmm. And I realized that LA didn't exist in Hawaii. In its bigger context, I mean, Hollywood, Burbank, none of that stuff actually existed here. When we talked to our agency clients from Japan, we knew that Japan was a big connector in Hawaii, but they always said, if we're ever going to do work, we're going to go to LA, because LA is where we do work. Hawaii is where we go to vacation.
Yeah. And
so I've always had that ringing in the back of my head that this is a place you go to if you want to live a life, but that life is not the production life. So when I left LA, I knew that I was kind of leaving that dream behind. I mean, this is before YouTube, before Facebook, before any of these big enterprises started this digital revolution with content and social media.
Right.
So I really was leaving that dream behind, mostly so I could come back here and spend time with my family. I always tell this story, but I really just wanted to be able to go fishing with Grandpa while he could still go fishing.
Wow.
And be with Dad and be with my mom and like share all these experiences with family that I knew didn't exist in LA. I knew I could always find a new job in Hawaii, change industries, whatever it was, but the one thing I could never replace was my home, my family, and all that meant to me at the core of who I was. And in LA, I felt like I was losing myself. I felt like I was losing my identity to the thing that I made, the thing that we did. And back home is where I could always come back and find it. So for me, it was almost a leaving of that identity so that I could come back and find myself, come back and change the direction of my internal focus. So yeah, I had no intention of starting video production. I had no intention of being an entrepreneur, hiring people, or any of that stuff. Just came back home to be with family and try to figure out what was going to be next for me.
What was the spark that brought you towards videography, if that wasn't your goal when you came back?
Honestly,
it's two like really different things. Like,
yeah,
graphic design and then going into videography, almost completely different industries, right?
Very different industries. But when I started in LA, I mean, we were doing production. Mm-hmm. That's the job that I was in, and so that was still my passion. But before DSLRs existed, it was big cameras. It was big technology. It was huge systems to edit everything and all of that. And in its plainest form, I didn't want to do that in Hawaii because the things that were happening here weren't the types of things that I was used to. I mean, we were making Super Bowl spots and music videos with REM and, big cinema style projects shot on film. And that wasn't the industry here. So in some ways, I just didn't want to do the industry the way the industry was being done. So fast forward a few years, I actually got a job at Anthology Marketing Group. So the biggest marketing agency in the state, and I was doing IT for them, fixing computers, doing networking, and that actually led me to where I am today. And I don't think I ever would have thought that was the case. I thought I was going to do IT. I thought I was going to fix Mac computers and have a normal job and do what I wanted to do.
I mean, was that your passion? Did you like doing that?
I didn't, but in a very strange way, it was still problem solving, which is what we get to do, is creative problem solving. So more than just making videos, more than just storytelling, we're solving a problem for a company, for a person, for a brand. And at the core, even IT, fixing problems is doing that. So when I was at Anthology, I ended up making all kinds of friends, acquaintances, eventually who became clients. So that 6-year stint of doing IT actually is what sparked BeRad Studio. So I got to be real close to the marketing industry, seeing who was doing what, and learning about clientele, learning about the world here, because it was so different than what I was used to in California. And that's huge. Even though this was my home, it was a brand new place because I'd never worked here like that. So I still was a new person. I still was a new talent. Even though some people had kind of heard about what I was doing or that I was coming back home, I had no real portfolio here in that regard. And everything is about what you've done here and what you've done lately. So
they don't care that you were in LA working on REM projects and stuff like that.
They did and they didn't. I actually was met with a little bit of confrontation because people were like, "So are you coming back to Hawaii to take our jobs or blah blah blah?" And I didn't like that. So I stepped way back, and that's why the IT thing was actually really big for me. It allowed me to step behind the scenes while still being able to freelance on the side. So as I'm still doing a couple of creative projects, both from clients here and in LA, as I'm slowly starting to build up a network of potential opportunities here, and also just becoming friends with people. You know, that's big here in Hawaii.
Yeah.
That opportunity it just unlocked this potential while this new industry of digital distribution was being built. I mean, at the beginnings of my time at Anthology, that's when Instagram became a thing. That's when it was invented.
People taking pictures of food.
People taking pictures of food, people tweeting out what they just ate. Social media was literally just a place where you tried to communicate to other people, hoping somebody else would have a symbiotic relationship to whatever you wanted to say. And now that it's a bigger content platform than some of the traditional broadcast platforms,
way bigger,
yeah, it's changed everything. So now you can actually build a career like I had in LA here or anywhere in the world.
There are some really big name,
huge
YouTubers and social media influencers coming out of the islands. And a lot of people here don't realize that that's happening because they're known, throughout the world, not necessarily here.
Yeah. I mean, there are people in my hometown in Mililani that are doing big things that nobody really knows about. So yeah, this last decade has been, I mean, it's cliche, but it's been a game changer for the entire industry and what is to come of this industry and video, creative arts.
Yeah, it's almost like, especially with the pandemic and shutting down and people having to work from home and do Zoom meetings and stuff like that, I kind of got the sense that, especially with schooling being done, it's like, well, what's the future going to look like when people start getting used to doing Zooms and WebExes and they don't even expect you to come into the office and you go in for a job interview and your job interview is via WebEx? What are they going to look at? They're going to look at your presentation on camera. Like, how's your lighting? How's your camera? How's your microphone? Is it really echoey? Or, do you know how to front light yourself? Or are you backlit? And it's just like a really dark face, because those things are kind of tied into the the production that you're going to bring to their customers.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny that everybody has kind of become their own production company when it comes to just how they face their coworkers on Zoom or on Microsoft Teams or whatever. But everybody's thought at some point about lighting, about audio quality, and about their camera. And that's all happened in the last year and a half since we've been interacting through screens.
Yeah, there was a point in time when during the pandemic where you couldn't buy microphones. Like they had sold out on all these, on Amazon they were sold out, on all these other retail stores they were just completely sold out. I was like, what the hell's happening? But it was people buying these nice microphones because they were having these meetings on Zoom and stuff like that. They wanted to sound good. They didn't want to sound all echoey and stuff.
Yeah. And the introduction of these digital interfaces so that you could get mics in the computers, or digital microphones so that you could just USB straight in. Like, the technology has increased rapidly to where things that used to cost thousands of dollars to convert and to build and to make sound good, just, man, you can get it at Best Buy or at Target.
Yeah. And all the knowledge that you need to get to that point, it's on YouTube.
Yep.
Just take time and go research it and figure it out.
Yeah.
Watch other people have made the mistakes and have already learned, and they're putting out content for you to watch. So you can really learn how to do that stuff. It's almost like there is no excuse to have like a crappy Zoom video anymore.
Yeah. That's true. But still see a lot of junk video out there.
You do. Yeah. Which kind of boggles my mind. I'm like, why? Don't you know how to do this? No, I don't. So, okay. Well, I understand. Yeah. It's the effort into researching it and going through the time and doing the work of actually trying this stuff, which for a person like you went to school for not for videography, you went to school for graphic design. So how did you even learn the videography? Just on your own?
Well, I had a camera in my hand since I was in high school, and before that I just loved making pictures. So from grade school I was drawing stuff, pinhole cameras. I remember just recording stories into my mom's tape recorder back when I was like in first grade. So story, creativity has always been a part of just my ethos in so many regards that sometimes I forget that it's been a part of my story for a long time. So in some ways it's very just natural, innate to think like that. But very specifically, I started making videos, skateboards videos, surf videos in high school. Social media was getting the VCR and plugging in the tape that I just cut together. But I would spend all night, hours and hours and hours, just with 2 VCRs in my bedroom and a little TV, just cutting from tape to tape. So and so that's how the journey started for me. Is just, there was no YouTube, there was no nothing, just school of hard knocks, recording and just going for it.
But I look at that and it's like, so you're doing now what you were doing for fun as a kid, and you're making money now doing it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I wish like everybody could get to that point where, you're doing what you were passionate about as a kid, but now you're doing it as an adult making money.
Yeah. And I think there's also a strange like danger in leapfrogging some of the experience. Because right now kids are making millions of dollars playing around with slime or toys on YouTube, and never really got to go through the experience of becoming an adult or going through school in the same way. Those human elements of learning, in this progress state, I think have been sometimes lost because we've leapfrogged a little bit too fast, too young. And I don't think I would be where I am today if I didn't go through a lot of that learning on my own.
I wanted to talk to you about, just prior we were talking about your storytelling, and you're really big on storytelling, not just with your business, but personally also. So I kind of wanted to know, like, what is your creative process when you're thinking about creating somebody else's story or story for them? And is there a way or a method that you do it today that is different from how you did it when you first started? Because when I hear story, building stories and telling stories, I'm like, oh, that sounds fun and easy, but it's not. Yeah.
Stories are tricky because they change. Every time you tell a story, some details get left out unless you rehearse it, unless you perfect it. You probably have gone to some business seminars or heard somebody on YouTube, and it sounds like they've perfected that version of that story. Most people are not like that. Most people, every single time they get up and they share a particular moment or memory with you, it's just a little bit different. They've either left one part out or they've brought a new part in. And so when you talk to somebody about their story, whether it's about a business or a brand or about a thing they did 5 years ago or the Olympics that they just started a journey towards, that story is going to be dependent on how well you ask questions. And I feel like if there's one thing that I've learned over the course of the years, it's how to ask better, more insightful, more meaningful questions that elicit the kinds of responses that we want to get for a particular video. So a lot of people, and myself included, when you first get started with video, when you first get started with interviewing somebody, you're just going there fishing, asking questions that you hope you get the right answers to, but very, very much like fishing. You throw in a line and you hope you catch something, versus going in there with a particular intention to tell a story that you have already crafted, that you know this person's story actually aligns with. So you're going in there more like hunting. So the two are very different in the way you're targeting information. One, you're hoping that you're going to catch something great. You're going to get the ahi that's going to feed your family for a month. Or you just go in there and you catch the really specific types of fish that you know are going to feed your family, real specifically for that week.
So which one are you doing?
So we're getting more refined. Every single time we do it, we're learning how to hunt better. And it's because storytelling in the post-production side of things will take a terrible amount of time if you're just fishing all the time. You're going to go through hours and hours and hours of interview footage and content, hoping that you found a soundbite that matches what you're trying to say. And sometimes this is what we've noticed even more, is clients don't even know what they want to say. They're hoping you're going to help them bring it out. And that's what we do as expert storytellers, is we're helping them tell the story they wish they were able to tell on their own.
It's like they just want a nice video or a nice commercial.
Yep. But
they don't know further than that.
Yeah, it's our job to help them extract the information that we know is deep within their soul that they just need to pull out. And they need somebody else to help them pull it out. And that's where the storytelling gets refined. That's where the questioning becomes much more surgical. And then your time in production and your time in post actually shrinks way down, because you're much more conscious while you're shooting of what the content is you need to get. So back in the day, we used to just start with a camera, start shooting interviews, asking questions. It looked great, sounded great, but it was a mess. We're cutting together like words and vowels just to make the words actually make sense. And you can do it. It's great. The whole idea of fix it in post. I mean, but
it's a lot of work.
It's because you can fix it in post, right? But we don't like to do that. Nor do we get the best stuff out of people when we're just fishing all the time, hoping for good things. So in our process, we've gone from just going in there with a camera and a lighting kit and sound and doing interviews, hoping for good stuff, to actually creating really meaningful storyboards and really well thought out treatments for what we need to get. And it's a simple process that a lot of people may already know about, but the better you get at that pre-production process, the better you get at crafting the story before you even get to your location, the easier your time's going to be. And you can do things in voiceover. You can do things with them in real time that you can't if you don't really even know what your story is about first. So it starts with a lot of great research. It starts with a lot of good thinking. And I don't think we give enough credit to the actual thoughtfulness of the process and of the person's story. Most of the time, we can do a lot of pre-interviews. We can do a lot of pre-thinking so that when we get there, everything just is a lot more smooth, a lot more seamless, so that also our talent or our client feels more comfortable. They feel comfortable because they know that you've thought through the story. and they feel comfortable with sharing that because they know that you're going to take care of their story. And that's a really, really big responsibility.
Right.
For somebody who's never done this, for somebody who is vulnerable and sometimes shy, they want to be able to trust that if they give you something, even if it's, not a TEDx presentation, that you're going to take care of that you're going to do well with it and respect that information. They're giving you part of them to share with the world. So it takes a lot of trust, and a lot of that prep happens way before you turn on the camera. So we're spending weeks just developing stories now that we never did to the same depth as we're doing now. And I feel like that's elevated our storytelling a ton over the last few years.
So earlier in the episode, you're talking about how in LA, it's more of that production, cinematography kind of industry over there, which Hawaii didn't really have. But now it seems like you're bringing those same skills here. Is that kind of the path that you've gone on? Is that what you see you're doing?
I mean, I would actually say that in LA, my skill set was much more general. I wasn't doing any camera work. I was more on the post-production side, seeing all the edits come through, like working with VFX artists, understanding like workflow and that side of things, seeing the back end. So I wasn't even on the story side. I was more on the post-production build side. And so when I moved back to Hawaii, I had to learn all of that. Even though I had a camera and I shot skateboard videos and I cut my own things in high school, I had no idea how to build that for myself. Mm-hmm. I never made 30-second commercials. I never made music videos on my own. I just made things that I liked to make with my friends.
Did you fail a lot?
I failed a ton.
What kept you going after failing?
I'm Asian. We don't really give up. I mean, I hate to blame it on my ethnicity, but man, it's been such a great discipline that you learn as a kid. Like, you just don't give up. And
find something you want to do, do it right.
Yeah. I mean,
figure out how to do it right.
I feel like sports taught me a lot. Whether it was baseball or soccer or hockey or any sport that I tried, my mom and dad would always encourage me. They would come out to our games.
Mililani boy definitely tried hockey, right?
We did hockey. We lost, pucks down the drains. Yeah, we played everything. But man, losing well is a skill that a lot of kids today don't really get to learn. If you don't jump on a team sport where you get to actually win as a team and lose as a team, and where you lose more than you win, man, it's something that develops character and tenacity in a person that you just can't get in a school setting. You can't get that in a gaming setting. It's a very, very different, deep character that I feel like as an entrepreneur you have to have. If you don't have that ability, you will never push past failure. So I know Gary Vee always talks about how he loves to fail because it just helps him, strengthen his jaw for the next couple of rounds. And it's true. I mean,
yeah, I'm all about Gary Vee, man. That guy's great.
Yeah. And the truth is, dude, you get knocked down a ton more than you realize. And it's your ability to get yourself back up, back in the chair, and keep pushing forward, because you can't tell a client, sorry, I failed. You don't get a video now. You have to deliver something.
Yeah.
And you got to push past all of your insecurities, all of your failures, and deliver. So I think that pushes me forward every single time.
What's your favorite Gary Vee quote?
Lately, I think it's been document over creation. And that stuck with me for a while because I've been an artist for so long, and that everything has to be perfect. That your Instagram profile has to be perfect. Your cinematography has to be perfect. And so his whole thing with, especially when it comes to your personal brand or your personal story, that we want to live these highly curated, highly perfected, highly visually appealing lives. And we just can't. Like, we don't have a team of people that's constantly curating my life. And so he said, if you live for the glamorous, beautiful life, you'll always fail. So he says, it's more important that you document the realness, the rawness of every day, everything, and that'll help push you to your next thing. And the authenticity of documenting that journey actually speaks to more people than the perfect veneer of, this curated life. And so even for our brand, for our company, and for our clients, what we're seeing is the industry has been about perfection for so many decades that as people are starting to let down some of their guard, let down the veil of perfection, they're able to connect with their audiences even more. Not just from a, what is it called? Not just from a quantity perspective, but from a quality of story perspective. Mm-hmm. Like, because there's imperfection in our lives and in our stories, if we only live for the perfect moments and only share the perfect moments, it's an imperfect story.
Right. It almost seems fake.
Yeah.
To the real eye.
And that's becoming true. I mean, we have such good lie detectors, and we don't like being marketed to. Mm-hmm. So the imperfection of documenting all the time, or just documenting in real time rather than just in perfect times, is a highly valuable thing to learn when you're learning about brand.
Are you doing it?
In some ways, yes. Okay. But not nearly as much as I feel like as he would tell me to do.
Yeah, it always comes back to like how much I should or how much someone's telling me to do. Yeah. Same thing. With me, I hear what he says. I want to do it. I just don't do it. So it's on me, right? I haven't documented. I haven't produced, 3 TikTok videos a day.
Yeah.
Kind of stuff. Like he's doing crazy amounts of stuff. He's like, just film it, whatever. It's like, but I didn't plan anything. I'm not in the right setting. And then you see his stuff, and it's just like he's sitting in a car. He's sitting at a table. He's eating lunch. He's walking down the sidewalk. He just does it.
Yeah. And when we become this highly perfected version of ourselves, one, we can't keep up to that standard. Mm-hmm. We're human. We have flaws. We have bad days. We have, days where we're just sitting at our computer and we're not off in some beautiful landscape area or
You're
whatever.
Not going to have perfect lighting.
Yeah. But the more that becomes our brand, that our story revolves around that imperfection, the more true it is, and the more we can actually tell. So, yeah, that's been one that's lingered in my heart for a few years, and it's even one that I've tried to lean some of my clients into.
Yeah, because it also builds trust when people start seeing the real you all the time. It's like, oh, they actually feel like they know you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know I've always put up this wall of, if I show imperfect video content or photography content on a BeRad Studio page, what will my clients think about the work that I do? If the brand content that I put out about our brand isn't glorious, will they think that I can't do glorious work for them? And so that's always also stopped me from taking down that wall of like polish. But man, it's actually the content that we throw up, whether it's like an Instagram live or just like something that's a bit less visually crafted, that resonates with people.
It's almost like you have to do both. Mm-hmm. It seems like your website is reserved, anybody's website is reserved for the perfection, the perfect shots and everything like that. And your social media, your TikTok, your Instagram, that's for, your day-to-day. Hey, look, I screwed up on the edit. Hey, look at this lighting. It just looked horrible. And, get people to laugh at that kind of stuff and be entertained by it. Apparently our new social media lives are just about entertainment. Mm-hmm. It's like, hey, how can we entertain you?
Yeah. And that comes back to storytelling, is that we are imperfect and that we are, we're human. We all are. And so when we can pull out some of those notions from other people as well, when we can have them take down their walls of needing to feel or sound or look perfect, that's when we actually get the best content from them. That's when the realest stories come through, is in those moments of vulnerability, in those moments of like trust. And it's getting to that point. Sometimes it takes like 20 minutes to get to that point in the conversation where they trust you enough to actually share the gold again, it's about building a relationship with this person or persons to allow yourself the privilege to hear their soul. And I know that sounds like super weird and heady
well, for me, it's parallel, right? Because
is.
I'm a podcaster, so it's like, no, I spend this time talking and conversing to try to get to the heart and soul of the guest.
Yeah.
You know,
And that's the real, right? That's where you get the realest stuff. And that's where the best stories live.
yeah, I love storytelling. I wish I was better at it, and maybe it's just a matter of practice and putting together more, putting more effort into it. Because whatever you put effort into, that's what you're going to be good at, down the road. If I don't put effort into documenting my life or creating good stories or anything like that, that's not what I'm going to be good at.
Very true.
That's why my handwriting sucks.
Oh man, I still remember so distinctly. This one will never leave my memory database. But I had a teacher. I'll never say her name, but in first grade, she said, "Brad, have you ever heard of an N minus? You remember grades, the N? You remember N, non-satisfactory?
Yeah.
So back when we were in grade school, it wasn't A's, B's, and C's, D's. It was E, S plus, S minus, N. Like that was the grading curriculum or criteria. So she's like, "Have you ever heard of an N minus?" And I'm like, "No, what's that?" She said, "That's your penmanship. Like your penmanship is so bad. I want to give you an N minus." And I was like, "Dude, I'm in first grade. Break my heart." But
and now we're living a digital world where they don't even teach cursive anymore.
I don't know how people are going to sign their name on their checks, but they don't write checks anymore. It's all Venmo.
Stop writing checks, people.
Right?
What do you feel? So you've gone through all of this history of learning your craft and honing your skills through different industries and stuff like that. But what I kind of wanted to ask you is, where do you foresee technology going? Because you're a real tech guy, especially with cameras and digital stuff. Where do you see that going in the next 10 years, seeing as how the previous 12 years has brought us the smartphone and have kind of changed our whole social dynamic with social media and everything like that? Mm-hmm. Where do you see it going from here, and where do you think your children will be doing in that time frame?
I still remember the day that I got my first iPhone. I was working at Anthology, and I was the IT guy there, and I was one of 3 people that got that phone. Back then, barely anybody had phones or smartphones. They had Palms.
Flip phones. And,
we had a Palm Trio back then. And I remember telling our CFO and everybody else that was in our meeting, this is going to change the world. And everybody looked at me like, what are you talking about? I said, in 2 years, all of these desk phones that we have that are connected to this phone server are going away. And they all laughed at me. And sure enough, within 2 years, everybody had their own device, whether it was provided by the company or they bought it on their own. And it really did change the communication landscape. It's not just about making videos or taking photos and sharing them. It's the dynamic of being able to interact in real time wherever you go, whether you're on a train or in a plane or you're responding to emails or crafting whatever. It's in your pocket. Gary Vee constantly talks about how AR and audio or voice are the 2 emerging technologies that probably will take over.
AR being augmented reality.
And we see that with things like how Snapchat changed AR for everybody. It's not just goofy filters on faces, but the idea that you can put yourself in these dynamic alternate realities and interact in ways that you never could before. Without ever leaving your seat. And that's becoming a whole new world. The places that we've seen it actually impact a lot are things like furniture stores, right? Those are easy wins because now you can put a piece of furniture before you buy it into your living room digitally because of how you can augment the reality of your space. And that's just a way to buy something, let alone how we're going to interact with people. So I know that the question has come up, will people still want to come to Hawaii if their reality can put them so present in that place? in the future, to where they won't actually need to travel here. They won't need to book a ticket or a hotel room, because they'll be there instantly.
That's the whole Ready Player One
Right?
thing.
Exactly. And I know that technology is being developed now. It's still in its very rudimentary stages. But I mean, we see it in real time, we see it with like cosplay. People love to break out of their current status and become these superheroes or these supervillains because they want to change their reality.
Mm-hmm.
We see it in gameplay, right? People become these characters and go into these worlds and can live there for days.
Second life kind of thing.
Yeah, because people are they want to meet somebody new, whether that's just friends that they haven't been able to connect with in person, or they just want to travel to some place new that the bus won't take them to or a plane won't take them to, and they can become this new person and reinvent themselves. And so these augmented lives are being lived right now in every continent. So I think those are some of the nuanced, the new advanced ways that we're going to start to see people living as normal lives. We also see this in like the dating world, where people don't need to even go on first dates because they're like already checking people out and their statuses and their LinkedIn profiles and their Instagram lives before they even go on dates. I was talking to somebody recently about how hard it is to actually meet somebody, like a legit person today that hasn't already stalked you in your digital life. And I think it's in some ways terrifying to know that we have to, going back to these like curated lives, have to like either abandon the digital world so that you don't have this digital footprint that people can stalk, or you have to live this highly fictionalized version of yourself.
Because even companies, when you're applying for them, they'll look through your social media and see what you're publicly saying.
And we were doing that at the agency 8 years ago. So it's so much more advanced, and we have so much more data online and available for everybody because we're just giving it away to these social platforms. So in the technology world, what I see coming even more into reality in the next 10 years, we have smartphones, but we also now have smart fridges. Gary Vee talks about smart clothing eventually, that the idea that these things will think for us without us even having to make decisions is becoming a really present ability.
Like, can I just not tie my shoes? Can my shoes just like cinch up on me? Like
Back to the Future
Back
style,
to the Future
right?
shoes. Yeah, where are those? Where's the hoverboard? Come on, guys.
But the fact that your refrigerator can tell you to order milk now
Doesn't
when you're running low.
There are refrigerators
going
that
to Amazon
will already order stuff, right? Yeah.
And so those decisions are becoming less and less human interactions and becoming more algorithmic decisions that things are being made for us. So in some ways, we're becoming dumber as a people, even though we're becoming more educated globally. We're getting more information at our digital fingertips, but we're still becoming dumber because things are making those big decisions for us. And I see this weird balance between how much we should push into technology and invest in it, because we're like, even with our son, we struggle with the idea of how soon do we want him to start learning about this stuff. We don't want him to be behind because that's where everything is going in the future, but we also don't want to introduce him too early to things that will infect his brain and his heart and his psyche at too young of an age, where he can't control the control of it, and become a master over the technology versus the opposite. So, technology is moving at a rapid pace, faster than we can think. And so we're going to continually have to adapt to that. And I think that the iPhone 20 or whatever that is just going to think so much more algorithmically for us. It's going to know our behaviors. It's going to know our patterns, and we're going to program it so that we have less decisions to make, so we can do more stuff. And I see us giving our lives over freely to technology to make decisions for us. And it terrifies me. And I also know that when it happens, we're probably going to just be totally okay with it. Where that's going to take us, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I was just watching Star Trek.
Yeah.
The one that came out, was it 2009? I think it was 2009. The recent trilogy, but it just got me reminded of how you have all these futuristic sci-fi movies where things have just been terrible. Things are terrible, and then you have terrible, like things like the world is shut down.
Yeah.
Like even Ready Player One, how they have this high technology of going into the Oasis and doing all their education and business and everything like that, but the world itself is like this dystopian world. But Star Trek doesn't do that. Star Trek takes all of that information. It's like, no, we actually made it. Like, no, we've actually solved problems to the point where we can explore the stars and stuff like that. So that's like my big optimistic hope. And that's where I kind of see how you were just touching on a point of being a slave to the technology or a master of the technology.
Yeah.
And that's why you don't want your son going into it too early, because you want him to have focus of the real world before the technological world.
Yeah. I mean, I literally want him to kick a soccer ball before he kicks a Wii soccer ball. I mean, like, those are some of the things that I really want to make sure that still are a huge part of his life, is this analog experiential thing. And I feel like we are coming back to some of that. And I feel like in some ways, some of the social media identities really try to encourage a life outdoors, a life away from some things, which I think is great. However, I think that sometimes it's still just for the gram. Like, it's just for the showmanship to say, yeah, I'm outdoors, or I'm cooking my own meals, or I'm exercising, just so that we can flaunt it in front of people.
True. But if it inspires them to do that and actually follow through and go out into nature and stuff like that, go for a jog, go for a walk, appreciate the trees and the grass and this, fresh air, great.
Yeah. But hopefully it's not just driven by other people's opinions. And I feel like that's
tough one.
That's where I feel like even as an entrepreneur, that's where you have to always come back to your why you're building, why you're making, why you're doing. Because if at the core it's to either please people or to make money or something that's outside of your control, it's easy to lose that. It's easy to lose motivation and intention. And that's why a lot of people will say, if you don't love it, it's hard to invest your entire life doing that thing. And the same goes with, some of these performance types of things that we do just for our digital audiences, our digital selves. If it's not true to who we are, then it's easy to drop all of that or become disenfranchised with it. And kind of the opposite is implode because of it. And so we're seeing also this huge influx of disappointment and anxiety, and more than ever we're seeing
depression, suicide, all that stuff, just for people trolling them and commenting on their social media pages. It's like, really?
Right. And it's
Ignore
happening,
that stuff.
it's happening at such young ages.
Yeah.
In grade school, people they shouldn't be depressed. They should be having fun. They should be going on playing tetherball with friends or whatever. And so I think that's my hope long term, is that we can have some of those things deeply rooted in our family, both my business family, my home family, and keeping some of those things like real central to everything that we do.
I wanted to ask you, what is your life philosophy?
Well, that's a deep one. And probably longer than we have time for in this last segment. But
5 minutes.
I grew up going to church, and that's always been a huge pillar for me to always look back at and reflect upon. I come back to a lot of those biblical truths as core pillars in my life. And not too many people know about this, but I actually went to seminary. I studied Christian apologetics, and still that's a part of who I am. That's part of my identity, and that's even some of what I felt like I was losing back in LA was my identity, my who actually am I, and what do I want to stand for. And it got so wrapped up in other things rather than either God or myself or my family or any of those things. So in my life principle, it's to make sure that I'm still a good son to my parents, to my God, and also a good father and a good husband to my wife. So those are the things that I'll always come back to as my core philosophy, and the thing that I want to point everything else back to. That if I can't live a life that has integrity in those types of things, that I want to be a man of grace and truth and hospitality and love as the principles for running a business and running a family. Those are, I think, the core tenets of who I am. And I want to make sure that whenever I have business relationships, they still operate within those core tenets as well. And if all of those things align, I feel like I can come back every night to my wife and say, we did a good job today. And if I can also imbue that into some of my employees, and that trickles out through our business and our lives out, then yeah, I think I can sleep well.
Where is the future of BeRad Studios going? Where do you see that in the next 5-10 years?
Like I said, growing up in the church, a big part of what I like to do is build into other people. And in the church, it's called discipleship, but building into other people. And I love the idea of investing in other people, to teach them what we do, to also help them chase their dreams and tell stories. And my hope is to not have any story left untold. I tell this story once in a while that I never really got to tell my grandfather's story before he passed away. And I mentioned that I came back to be with him, to go fishing with him and do all of that stuff. But I never got to capture a video about his life. And that triggered something in me that I wanted to make sure that didn't happen again. And I can't tell everybody's stories, not in a meaningful way. So if I can help equip people to tell the meaningful stories that have helped shape their lives, whether that's through YouTube or person-to-person consulting, my goal is to do that. I knew that when I came home to Hawaii, I wanted to teach people. I wanted to invest in people. I wanted to possibly go back to Mililani High School and teach a course or something. But I love investing in people and building disciples who can build disciples and grow the world of story together. And I want that to be something that I don't hoard as a skill that only we do, but teach other people to do that well.
Freaking awesome, man. I'm Brad, so grateful and happy that you came on the show and shared with us all these stories.
Happy
it's
to
been
be
a
here.
Great episode. I know the audience has got a whole ton of value out of just your words here, and I hope they actually reach out to your social media platforms on YouTube. You're at BeRad Watanabe on YouTube. And what is your Instagram?
Instagram, Twitter, all of those things, BeRad Watanabe, and the production company side is BeRad Studio, if you want to follow along the production journey.
I just love the name, BeRad Studios. Like, it's such a 90s thing that's just...
It is.
Still as relevant today as it was back then.
Yeah. And so I haven't really said this much, but part of the growth that you were talking about is kind of this idea of like helping other people to go BeRad. And so that's why I'm wearing that on my hat now, is we've been able to do it, been blessed to follow this dream. But if we can help other people to go and do that as well, I want other people to go BeRad as well.
Awesome. Freaking awesome. Love it. All right, everybody. It's been great. And as always, stay happy, Hawaii.
Aloha.